Joining me now from Los Angeles, California, independent journalist and host of the Adult in the Room podcast, Victoria Taft. So Victoria, I really want to start with the cause of homelessness problem first. We can get to what the state's doing about it and all that, but really, why is the homelessness crisis so bad in the state of California?
Somebody who works with the homeless on a routine basis, I can tell you it's drugs, alcohol, mental illness, sometimes brought about by days and weeks on the street. Letting prisoners out of jail and prison early has continued to allow more and more people to just be dumped out on the streets. And homeless tourism. I mean, in that package that you were just playing, there was a case of a man who came from London because he couldn't get treated for his illness there and came to the United States of America to live on Skid Row because he'd get free health care. Now think about that for a moment. And that guy in that particular parking lot with the $100 haircut, good for him. He wants to be safe. You know, we all have a right to be safe in our homes and in our person. And it's really nice to see private entities, churches, etc., groups to help these people. But the fact of the matter is, California encourages homeless people to come. And one of the ways in which they do that is to indulge all of these rehab facilities. And of course, people all over the country need to kick drugs and alcohol. But once that portion of time is up, insurance won't pay for it anymore. And they say to themselves, gee, I'd really like to be in Laguna Beach, or I really love Huntington Beach. That's great. And they stay. And that's what's going on. No kidding.
It's a little baffling to me, too, that state officials aren't taking action. Because, for example, when you hear President Trump speak out against some of the more liberal policies, he'll say, we have to stop immigration because we have homeless individuals in our own country, in our own cities right now. So you would think to some degree that city officials in California would want to combat that somehow. They'd say, take, for example, the latest health care push. President Trump saying, we need to take care of our own citizens, many of them which are veterans, before we start giving access to illegal immigrants who are asking for health care. So in regard to that front, what can state officials, and I guess federal officials for that matter too, do to really address this issue?
They can require the people who are out on the street to receive care, and by being in that caring facility, they need to be sober. That is not happening right now. They need to stay sober. They can send them back. They can enforce the law equally. You have homeless people who are camping on environmentally sensitive areas along the coastline, which is very interesting because you know what? You and I couldn't do that. We couldn't get away with that. They need to enforce the law equally. That means you cannot camp in front of somebody's house for more than 72 hours in your car. You can't do that. But you know what? They're starting to indulge that. You couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. And so, as a matter of fact, when you start enforcing the laws equally, people feel protected. And by the way, the homeless are not encouraged to come, camp, and stay.
Yeah, and you talk about enforcing the laws that are already on the books, and I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the most recent gun situation in Gilroy. I mean, of course, the mass shooting last week. And in response, California State Senator Shannon Grove actually released a statement saying elected officials in California talk tough on guns and even have the ability to act, but don't. Why is that?
Well, because they have no political will to do it. They pretend not to have any money when they have 3 times the amount of money they said they needed to do it. And let me just point out one thing. They are so busy letting out criminals from the jails and the prisons, such as the man who took the knife and stabbed to death 4 people, who was a known gang member. He was a documented gang member. And what does he do? He gets out of prison early and is allowed to predate upon people who just wanted to get a sandwich or just wanted to go on a day longer in their lives. And he stopped that. Why? Because California officials said, we're going to let him out. He seems like a good bet. Fat chance. Nobody wanted that guy out of prison except California Democrats, and they let him out. Now, as far as the gun situation goes, this is the same kind of political will or lack thereof that you see with that particular case of the guy with the knives. You've got a list of people who have been shown by law enforcement to not be allowed to have weapons. They are violent criminals. They've shown themselves and are, in fact, adjudicated to the extent that their judge says you can't have a gun. You can't have one. Well, they got a list that was 20,000 names long a few years ago. And now it's 20,000 names long. They're not doing anything. And now they're looking at Trump and they're going, hey, wait a second. Why don't you do something? Well, I know Javier Becerra. I know Governor Newsom. Why don't you guys do what you can with the people in your midst, who are, by the way, your citizens?
Right. And, we talk about gun violence right now, and there's actually this movie coming out that I want to address, of course, coming from Hollywood, called The Hunt. And the the premise is literally liberal elites killing people for fun that they call deplorables. I think we have a clip of that trailer. Let's take a look.
Your idea is incredible.
I can't argue with that. We pay for everything. So this country belongs to us.
It's just business. Hunting human beings for sport.
They're not human beings.
I mean, what? Like, I mean, I don't even know what question to ask about that. What does this say about how out of touch Hollywood really is with the rest of the country?
Well, they think they are in touch. That's the sad thing. You know, when I know that somebody had to do a 30-second elevator pitch to get that movie greenlighted, and here's the way it went. Hey, I know. How about if we have a bunch of liberals go after a bunch of conservatives with guns, and we'll turn the tables on them because they always like guns. So let's take it out and shoot them first. That's what they are doing. Now, let me just mention one thing, apropos possibly of nothing, but the first late mass killing in the early 1980s in San Diego, California, at a McDonald's restaurant by James Huberty. He's the guy who said, I'm going out and hunting humans today. They should think about that in Hollywood.
Right. And let's not confuse anything here. One of the lines that the Hollywood Reporter released it comes from this movie and says, did anyone see what our blank in chief just did? And then someone responds, at least the hunt's coming up. Nothing better than going out to the manor and slaughtering a dozen deplorables. I mean, there is no ambiguity when it comes to what this movie is about. So, I don't know. I'm sure it'll be a hit at the box office. What's that, Victoria? Go ahead.
Did it escape your notice that the main protagonist for the deplorables looks like Ivanka Trump?
I didn't even notice that. That's pretty remarkable. I don't know. It's just really remarkable what's going on. But good job, NBC Universal, I guess. But we're running out of time. Victoria, thank you for joining us.
Want to see more videos like this? Click on the link below and subscribe to One America News on YouTube. And call your cable provider and kindly demand that One America News is added to your lineup. Call and subscribe today.